Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of You Gotta Hear This. Yes, episode 2.
The excitement is just riveting.
I know. I'm very good at ramping up the excitement levels, as you can tell from
You've already
this.
done it. You've already
I
done
know.
it. You started talking. You're up about 100 points already.
Yes, so I am
There.
joined, as always, by Mike Monzetta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being had. Greg Urquhart and
I've
Joe
never been had.
Boynton. And well, I think we could start with a brief follow-up of last week's episode, Perfect Albums. We had a chance to kind of listen through a little bit. Guys have any insights, comments, questions, concerns?
I think right off the bat, I'm very familiar with the Pearl Jam, so that I didn't even listen to that just because I knew it.
Yeah.
I was more interested in the two that I haven't listened to, and of the two that I listened to that I haven't listened to, I like Joe's the best.
Oh.
But I did find that I knew a lot of those Wilco songs just from listening on like Spotify and like them being thrown in. But in our group text, I did say it was very Pavement-ish.
I thought that was an interesting comparison. I don't hear too much of the Pavement. I guess you said something about his voice, which I can see that. I think they both kind of have a mid-rangey vocal sound or delivery, and
musically it was different. It was just the voice that was really tripping me up, and then it just seemed it wasn't hitting all the points for me.
Wasn't hitting you in the feels, so to speak.
No. But to Joe's band, which I already forgot the name of,
Mock Orange.
Very good. I could understand your "aw man" moments.
Lot. I don't remember the number, but it was pretty high.
You were like 72 or something.
I think so.
It was a lot.
70
Yeah,
something.
no, that was very good. I'm surprised I never really listened to them before, but it was nice. I enjoyed it very much so.
Yeah, I really
the three that you sent in the group text that are on the playlist. The last one is which one I like the most.
The last song. So is that Goodnight Reddick?
I think so.
Yep, number 10.
My favorite Pitch Black character.
There's a band
that was
quotes for song titles.
Rada Mitchell.
Mexico.
That was fun for me to listen. So thank you.
Yeah. It was great. I'd never heard those albums, any of the three. I heard some of the Gorillaz album, but I've never heard any of John's or Joe's. And I thought Wilco was going to be a lot more Jayhawksy, a lot more like alt country, like Matthew Sweetie. That's kind of what I thought they were going to be.
Well, that was kind of how they started out. I think their first album is a lot more like that, for sure.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they played a lot of early Bonnaroo festivals, and all the early Bonnaroo festivals were like straight up jam bands and like Fish. So that was their kind of
and the like. But yeah, it was. But I thought, and it was interesting because I think you said that you were very close to picking a Flaming Lips album, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robot, and I thought the Wilco album was very Flaming Lipsy.
Yeah. I think there's something similar about both. Those albums came out around the same time, and I think they both appealed to me in the same kind of way.
It was great. My favorite song on the album was Jesus, Etc., which is sort of a coincidence because I think Modest Mouse would be placed in the same category maybe as that Wilco album, and I really enjoy the Jesus Christ Was an Only Child song off of Lonesome Crowded West. It's my favorite song on that album. And they sound very similar. They've got the violin intro and they're more poppy while the rest of the album is a little more experimental. So that was my favorite song on that album. Wow. And I thought Joe's was great too. I got a real Jawbreaker vibe from Joe's.
Oh yeah, definitely from that.
Oh really? You guys are nodding in agreement. I was gonna follow that up with I'm very music incompetent, so I apologize if that's not accurate. But I really did get a huge just a everything in your face Jawbreaker vibe from that band, but I loved it. It was fantastic. There wasn't a single that I would pop off and put in a playlist, but the album as a whole I thought was fantastic. And so I think I told you guys on the text, but after listening to all three albums, there was no doubt in my mind that all three of those definitely are perfect albums. So good picks, everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
What did we get? I know we got some comment. Did we get any comments from anybody saying that they had suggestions of what they thought were perfect albums, or did anybody kind of chime in? And
So I saw one comment that was, I actually got, I think it might have been like a direct message because it didn't show up on the YouTube comments, but I could see it as I don't know, the person running our YouTube page. They actually told me that they thought that Happiness Is by Taking Back Sunday is a perfect album, which I thought was very flattering and very, very nice. My immediate reaction was to feel like, oh, you're just like trying to get on my good side and flatter me or something. And like, I don't know what they would get out of that, but it's hard for me to take compliments like that anyway. But I am very proud of that album, and I definitely think every song is good to great, and I appreciated somebody feeling that way and expressing that. And yeah, like I said, it's hard for me to necessarily agree or take the compliment, but it was that was a very cool thing to hear.
That's awesome. I'm a huge Happiness Is guy. I don't want to go on record as after going back and listening to last week's episode, I made a reference to the Taking Back Sunday album with the Panther on it. And now I know that is.
That's the one.
Yeah, I'm a huge Happiness Is guy.
Yeah.
But the
I just like Happiness.
Taking Back Sunday album is the self-titled.
Thanks, Joe.
The best.
Oh, that's a good one too. I mean, yeah, I can't be.
Right. You're not going to obviously weigh in one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, we got some other comments too. Greg, what were you going to say?
I just looked at all the Instagram posts. There was nothing really substantial. There was a little bit of Star Wars banter between Joe and Mike.
That's very
Most of the comments on the Instagram page were Joe and Mike. So.
So if anybody's listening to this and they have any comments about perfect albums or whatever today's show topic is, please drop us a line on Instagram, and we're always interested to hear it.
I think the last YouTube count was at like 79 views.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
It's gone up since then. So last thing I checked right before we got on this, closing in on 200.
Nice.
But I did see the average watching time was about 8.5 minutes.
Which is where we're about right now. So thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next week.
I wonder how many of those views were our friend Adam.
Yes. Adam was very sad that he was not invited to be on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So you think he might be hate watching it?
He probably is. Just
He's like Wilco.
Just seething in his garage, hitting refresh.
It's possible.
I'll show them.
I mean, I felt bad because so Greg and I both heard it from him that he was not happy that he was not invited. I tried to explain that this developed naturally out of a group text that we've been having for like literally probably 8 or 9 months or something. But I don't think that really made him feel any better, unfortunately.
Mm.
And then I told him he could be a guest on the show, but I feel like that also didn't make him feel better. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm sorry. What can I say? I'm sorry I can't be perfect. Remember that song?
No.
Is that like a song that your parents used to sing?
Is that like a Nickelback song? Or
I was singing at a low register. I should have sang a little more. Sorry, I can't be perfect. Does that help?
Was that Simple Plan?
I think
Or
it's
like
Simple Plan.
Newfound Glory or something?
No, it's Simple Plan.
Simple Plan. Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Talk about perfect albums.
Yeah.
They're not included.
Ooh,
So let's move on to our topic for today. So we decided to talk about perfect catalogs, a band with a perfect catalog. And For me personally,
Hmm.
it really just got me thinking a lot about what that actually means, if it's even possible, if it really even exists, whether or not there is a band with a perfect catalog. I started thinking about the fact that, you have a band like Nirvana, who I think you could maybe make the case for as a perfect catalog, but like 3 albums, and then kind of a B-sides album that they put out, and like, so that's good. But then you can't, how do you compare that to like Bob Dylan, who's made like 40 albums or something, and then also somebody like Bob Dylan or the Rolling Stones or some of these bands that have been around forever, they've got like probably a 10-year or more stretch of making perfect albums, and then like 5 years where it's maybe not the best, and then they come back around again. And then also, what does perfect mean? Does it mean every single song on every album is great and they never made a bad song on any album? Does it mean there's a natural progression from one place to another where it grows into something amazing? So that's kind of what I've been thinking about with this. And I have some ideas of perfect albums, but yeah, so I got some more thinking about it. So I don't know if you guys had similar
I had the same
issues, or if you
struggle
felt
because I was wondering. I was like, well, perfect album is one thing where like it's 10 to 12 songs front to back. You can listen to it. Perfect discography is borderline impossible.
Yeah.
So I kind of weighed in with the fact that like, okay, there's all these albums I can listen to. I might skip one or two each song to where they're not a perfect album. Just overall their composition, and then how the band's sound has progressed and what kind of choices they made on an album after their sophomore album or their fifth album, to see how they just matured or what have you, and also just overall fan reception of the albums and
yeah.
how it peaked their career, like which album really put them on the map, which album, how long did that take?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yep, I looked at it very similarly. I think it's going to be impossible to find a band that has a succession of perfect albums. But the way I looked at it is a collection as a cohesive
Mhm.
work of art. How all of the albums were on brand, if you will. How none of the songs on the album, while they might not be perfect, but swayed away from that band's overall feel or the overall, I guess, brand of the band. So that's how I looked at it. It's not that the entire collection was perfect, but that they all work together as a cohesive whole.
Right.
Yep, agreed.
Okay. Makes sense.
What do you got for us, Joe?
So you want me to go right into it? My band?
Yeah.
So I picked a band with a perfect catalog. I don't believe there is a perfect in anything with art in any type of medium. The whole point is definitely just to create. But I tried to find a band that I loved that, for a long period of time. And I set, basically like the last episode, I set a list of rules to get as close to that as I could. So my 9 rules for this.
9 rules.
9 Jesus.
9 rules.
You're always the most dedicated to this series.
No, I'm not. I
have a very complicated list of criteria that I will read for you all right now.
I always work harder, not smarter.
Are you gonna bring out a board with like rope attaching like pins? And
oh, that'd be amazing! I'm gonna do that. Give me a few episodes. I will do that just because that'd be hilarious. So a minimum of 3 full lengths. They have to bring the riffs. They have to be one of my favorites of all time. My level of joy listening to them has to be peaked, like has to be maxed. They have to be in my regular rotation, so I have to listen to them at least once every 3 months. They have to have the nostalgia factor for me. It's one of my favorite aspects of music is the nostalgia factor. They have to heavily influence bands that follow them. Consistent momentum, mature over time, and be confident, like Mike Baby was saying. They have to be confident in their overall direction. So I picked Lifetime, a punk band, a melodic punk band from New Brunswick, New Jersey. They started in 1990. They went from 1990 to 1997. They broke up, then they came back in 2005, and they're still active today. So they're a melodic hardcore punk band. if you're fans of the band Saves the Day, Kid Dynamite, Shelter, Green Day, Ramones, Lifetime should definitely be in your rotation for sure. They had 4 albums. Their first album, Background, it's very dark, slow album, especially for a punk band. It's heavy, very emotional. Sounds similar to Turning Point. Definitely have a DC emo sound in there. And then 2 of my favorite records by them, Hello Bastards, and then they followed that up with Jersey's Best Dancers. Those 2 records are fast, angry, gritty, fun, catchy, heavy, and most importantly, nostalgic. This is where they start getting into more of the nostalgic draw for me as a listener. So those 2 albums. And then when they came back in 2005, they had their self-titled album, which was tighter as far as recording goes. It was more fun. I found it catchier than the others. They definitely kept the nostalgia factor. It was definitely happier and feel good. It feels more like lyrically they grew into, their, where they wanted to be in life. It feels like they're in a much happier place than the last 3 albums. Why I love this band, why I picked this band is they have it seems like a family recipe compared for a band. It feels like you're never going to find a band like this except for this moment in time, which I feel like is the strongest thing of all the bands that I love. You can have bands that sound like for instance, the Replacements have that. There's bands that can sound like the Replacements, but there's only one Replacements. There's definitely only one Lifetime. They are kind of like if Bruce Springsteen was in a punk band. That's the best way to sell them to someone.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
It just gives you a Bruce Springsteen lyrical tone. It's like Jawbreaker mixed with Bruce Springsteen. He's actually used I feel like he's used some lyrics from Bruce Springsteen songs. But
who was the band that sings that song, Lower Chelsea? And I think they did the one about, was it the Gaslight Anthem?
Yeah.
You get a Bruce Springsteen vibe from them as well? Because I really got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Have them.
Okay.
You can have one without the other for sure. My system of amens. So if anyone's just tuning in to the podcast on episode 2, in the last one, the first podcast, I counted how many times I'm listening to this. So I listened to their whole discography front to back. And every time I went, oh, wow, oh man, like I'm excited. I have that little moment in my brain where I'm like excited for the song in that specific moment, that riff, whatever they do in that song. I had 192.
Holy
what?
Throughout the entire catalog?
Double the Omans from last time.
Well, how many albums is that?
Oh, that's the whole catalog there. Okay.
That was with 4. And I know they're going to have, they may have some other songs on like, splits or
right.
one-offs.
So I have not had 192 Allmans in my entire life, listening to albums or otherwise. And I've been to the Grand Canyon. I was the star of a goddamn Sci-Fi Network movie. And you've had more Allmans in this one catalog than I've had in my entire life.
Yeah.
It might have to do with how easily impressed you are, though.
Absolutely. 100%.
It's all relative.
Different than Mock Orange. Mock Orange brought me the Allmans from the guitar and from the guitar, bass, and drums. A lot of mine came from all the band hitting at once, the part they decided next, but a lot of it was the lyrics. The lyrics separate this band from a lot. Everything's great in this band. I don't have any problem with any of the other members of what they've created and what they brought to the table, but definitely the lyrics play a huge role in this band and why I love them so much. For instance, on theme song for a New Brunswick basement show from Jersey's Best Dancers, my favorite line, this is probably one of my favorite Lifetime lyrics, but he goes, I saw a vacant seat. I sat down next to you. I thought of all the boys that wanted to. I laughed out loud. Do you hate this band too? I smiled a nervous smile, but I warmed up and acted cool, standing by the stove, and your eyes made it strange, and I felt out of place, wondering if you could take her place. So it's just so specific, and who can't relate to that? Having a crush at a young age, and I love the line, "Do you hate this band too?" Anytime a band sings about hating a band, or like one of my favorite local bands, Moment, have a line that says, what was it? Something about they're at a show. It's like a Halloween themed show, and it goes, the drummer was the only one not dressed, and it was like, and it's like, he basically, I want to say about a quarter of that album is him talking about what he loves about music and what he hates about music, and bands that he played with that he didn't like, at shows. And I just think that's cool, because I think that's missed in a lot of lyrics. It's usually relationship songs, but to tie in, oh, do you hate this band too? It's, I don't know. It's just very relatable, overall and specific. But
The impression I got from that lyric is that he was trying to look cool. He was trying to.
Right.
I think it's always cool to say that you don't like a band. So I got the impression that he was like, "Oh man, aren't these guys lame?"
yeah.
It sounds like he might be like freshly broken up with.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, wondering if you could take her place. Like that is the last line.
That's huge. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, nervous smile. I love that he did that. Like put that in there. Standing by the stove, again, specific. Felt out of place. Your eyes made it strange, and I felt out of place. It's very Jawbreaker, but it's its own thing. Like you feel like you're at the show and you're seeing the song. Like the song even tells you where it is. It says this is a theme song for a New Brunswick basement show. So I like the whole thing's encapsulated, and it's more of a movie than it is a song, and I really like that, how visual it is.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that's mostly what I have on Lifetime. I did ask about Nine Friends if they thought, if they think it's possible, of a perfect album. And what I realized is a lot of people do believe that, a perfect discography. Sorry, everyone I asked didn't even question it. They go, this band, this band, this band, and they all had,
Really?
it was a perfect discography, which was surprising.
Did you
What
agree?
were some of the examples they had?
I have, friend one had two. So yeah, I can list them up if you want. Seamus was, our friend Seamus was basically like, doesn't exist. Like it's all like subjective, like it's art. It's, you know what I mean? And I was like, I agree.
I feel like most people over like 35 or so would kind of be like, it's not possible.
It's a good thing none of us are that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think like people in their 20s, you just respond very viscerally, and you're just sort of like, yes, this is perfect, and you don't question it. I don't know the age range of people you're talking to, but I do feel like that's a thing, or at least in my life.
I'd say that just approaching. I'd say between, I think the youngest was around 28, and the oldest was probably 36, 37.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess the 28-year-old was very sure about what album and what discographies were perfect.
You can tell who your friends listens to music nonstop by the amount of bands they throw at you.
Right.
So Anthony LaBruno listens to a lot of music, and who else sent me a ton? Joe Lacey, my old guitarist, just all he does. It's like his main form of anything entertainment-wise is just listen to music nonstop.
Wow.
But yeah, we had, got told Pretty Lights was one. Tipper, I never listened to them. Black Sabbath with Ozzy. Another person saying Lifetime. Appleseed
Can't say
Cat.
Black Sabbath with Ozzy though, because it's got to be Black Sabbath.
Because it's still Black Sabbath, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Jawbreaker was one. Modest Mouse.
Jawbreaker was one. Interesting.
Modest Mouse was someone's. Braid was someone's.
Love
Yeah,
Modest
I couldn't get on board with Modest Mouse.
No, me either. I think we all three. I'm doing the pattern that I see it on my Zoom call, but you guys all probably have.
I love Modest Mouse, but there's definitely a few songs that I do not like.
I would say they're one of my favorite bands, and I would say every album has a handful of songs that I just don't even want to listen to.
Right.
That's part of what I love about them is that they are willing to kind of like take these chances and roll the dice. But I would not say perfect discography by any means.
Mm-hmm. But Algernon Cadwallader got brought up a lot, being a perfect catalog. If you haven't heard them, they sound a lot like they've been said to sound like Captain Jazz, Owls, Joan of Arc, but obviously from more of a newer band. They're no longer a band now, but I agree. I think they have a pretty close to perfect catalog.
Who did Seamus say?
REM.
Really?
Wow, that's a good
Wow.
call. But REM is one of those bands like U2, where the earlier stuff is so much different than the later stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not familiar with REM. I kind of lump those bands together
Mm.
because I'm not familiar with their early work and I'm not familiar with U2's early work. But I hear it's fantastic. I hear it's amazing, and I've never gone back and listened to it.
I'll have to text him after this and see. That's a good one.
Yeah, I believe he said The Cure was on his radar for that. A Tribe Called Quest, Outkast, and Bob Marley.
Yeah, Outkast is a good one.
Yeah, The Cure has the best song on the Crow soundtrack. Greg and John, are you guys familiar with Lifetime? I've never heard of them before, but
I'm familiar with them. I've never dove in. I know Adam's like a super fan.
Yeah, that's how I started getting into
we should
them.
have them on sometime.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah, Adam was super and still is super into them. That's how I started listening to them. Was because of his influence. And the Hello Bastards and Jersey's Best Dancers are the ones that I listen to the most, and they're great. And the lyrics, like you said, I think really is what brings it together. Because by the time I was hearing that, I think I was already like 23 or 22 or something. And I think even by that time I felt a little too old for like upbeat punk rock music.
Yeah.
But when I sat down and read the lyrics, and then, because like it really puts it in a whole nother context. And it's not what you would expect based on like the mood of the music and like the energy of the music. It's like the lyrics are existing on this whole other plane, which is very cool. I never heard the first. I actually thought their first album was Hello Bastards, though.
I did too when I first got into them, but no, they have an album called Background that's slow and heavy. I think it's good. It's there's no songs in it I would skip. It's not bad by any means. My favorite record is slowly becoming their newer one. They're self-titled. He sings the word. He sings a line something about making tabbouleh. And I just think that singing that word is so random, and it's just so fun. Like what he adds to the lyrics in the new one. Like I think the first song he's singing about, I hope you're in your car right now, turning this shit up so loud. Like it's just like these little snow globes of memories and moments in his life, and I love it. I love that it's better produced. It's like higher quality recording overall. I didn't think I was gonna like that from a punk band, but I do. And it's just the most fun. It's them really. I would say Hello Bastards has some angry songs. Jersey's Best Dancers has some sad songs and some like growing up and like crushing on a girl, and I think it's got a lot of that in there. But their self-titled it's just fun. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's overwhelmingly fun. And why I picked them to kind of end my segment is I can't just listen to one song by that band. I always go front to back every record as much as possible. The record is the song, in my opinion, for them. And I don't think my life would be as happy without, you find a band where it's like, my life is happier because this band exists. I have that because of Algernon. I have that because of Modest Mouse, and I definitely have it because of Lifetime.
I think that's one of those bands. Like I know we mention this a lot. It always comes up. It's one of those bands I just missed the boat on, and I felt like I couldn't jump into them now.
Yeah.
What's a good entry point? Super quick because we got to move it along.
I would say Jersey's Best Dancers. That was my entry point. I believe that was my entry point. I'd say that's the best entry point.
It's definitely the most accessible and immediate, I would say.
Cool. I will check that out tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well,
you're now up.
I had a hard time with this because a lot of them, I was having a problem with, okay, well, this album's good, this one's good, this one's hit or miss. It's like right off the bat, like I almost went Bright Eyes, but that got skewed really quick. Because I love them, I'll listen to all their albums, but as a whole, it's very hard to say it's a perfect discography. And same thing with the Beastie Boys. Love them, listen to all their stuff. They do have a couple like those instrumental jazzy albums. It's just like, I'll listen to it once, it's like, I'm good. I don't need to, like, what is it, like Hot Sauce Committee Volume 2 or something like that. Those are good ones. But I went with a male and female duo out of Detroit, and that is the White Stripes.
I thought you were going to say Captain and Tennille.
Close second. 6 albums, started in 2000. I don't think they really hit the ground running until Elephant, which was their third album. And that was my runner-up for perfect album, believe it or not.
I believe it.
And a little backstory to that album is I have it on vinyl because when John and myself and Eric from Long Island were walking on Long Beach at 4 a.m. one night, we walked past a house that had cardboard boxes just filled with records for the garbage. And we were just like, well, we're going to go through them all. And this is like one of the original pressings of it too, which was
No way. Did that
Yeah.
really happen?
Yeah.
Has
That
it?
was a crazy find.
Yeah, we all walked away with like a dozen records at like 4 a.m. Just
Why would you throw those out? I want to know the story of the person that was living.
I
in that
know.
house.
Yeah, it was like 3 crates of records just sitting on the curb
I think they were
outside.
finally switching over to CD. They're like, I'm done with these.
But as a whole, like their discography, I know like I didn't I knew of them in like the first couple because they were on MTV a lot with like the VMAs, and they did that Fell in Love with a Girl performance at the VMAs, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like it was just bananas. And it was hard to research them back then because like internet was still kind of up and coming. But then Elephant came out, and that's what really put them on the map because you had like Seven Nation Army was on that, and that's like one of the most recognizable songs
That's
you
a
could
great
ever.
song.
I mean, soccer stadiums, football games, everyone uses that song. And then their last album, Icky Thump, is amazing. Which,
It definitely went out on a high note.
yeah, that
I'll say that.
I know they were working on a follow-up to that, but that's when like Meg got all weird, and he was already doing stuff with the Rockin' Tours by then, which is another band of Jack White's, as well as the Dead Weather and his solo stuff. But as a whole, they're great. They just got the raw sound. Lyrically, they're just like goofy, but they do get into some serious topics as well. Affecting Cause on Elephant is a great song. Ball and Biscuit's probably my favorite White Stripes song. Jack White just destroys his guitar, and the riffs and everything are just amazing. I honestly think he's one of like, besides like Prince, because I would say Prince is in our generation, but
Oh man, I didn't
like,
even think about
I
Prince.
think like Jack White might be one of the best guitarists we'll have in our lifetime. He's insane, just what he does and what he'll just experiment with, and his marketing is genius. That's one thing. That's another reason why I picked that discography, because his coordination, how he does everything so specifically. He's very like anal retentive. He's it's
Wanted a
crazy.
rock star.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean.
He has control over like everything that his name is on.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he owns the masters to all of his albums. Like everything he produces, he
Wow.
owns everything.
The golf
Which is,
tournament?
yes.
I think Darius Rucker owns that.
What does Darius Rucker own?
No, he has a golf tournament called the Monday After the Masters. Very popular here in the South. Yeah, listen, if you're a Hootie and the Blowfish fan, you would know all about it.
And that's
We have established that you are a huge Hootie head.
Probably the biggest Hootie head.
that's awesome. But yeah, he's great. Like I think having the masters of all your own music is huge.
Yeah.
And he just had the common sense enough to do that early on.
Yeah.
And everything he does with vinyl for the resurgence of that is amazing. And like this vinyl is like a red and white. It's 2 LPs, so it's one's red, one's white. They stuck with that like peppermint candy theme for pretty much the whole history of their band. They're actually, I think Meg wanted to call themselves the Peppermints.
That's kind of a cool name. I don't hate that.
Yeah, I think the White Stripes is better. But like it's fun to like go through their album, like open up the vinyl jackets and like see all the work that gets put into those, because that's a whole another part of an album that a lot of people overlook. But artistically and like graphically and all that, it's just incredible.
So can
No?
I ask a I never heard their first album. That's, I think, the only one that I've never heard of theirs. Is it along the same lines as the rest of their stuff, or did they kind of start somewhere and then move into different territory?
So their first album was self-titled. That was '99. Some of them, I picked 3 songs off of each album that I liked the most, but those 3 were "Sugar Never Tasted So Good," "One More Cup of Coffee," which is a Bob Dylan cover,
Yeah.
and "St. James Infirmary Blues." They're all just really like raw, garage rock type songs, and I think that's
They had their sound already, like right from the beginning.
I think so, because he was always in the music even before that. Like, there's his history. Like, he worked in a furniture upholstery factory. He upholstered furniture, and him and the other guy, I want to say it was Brendan Benson. They both started a band called the Upholsterers, and they just did their own little stuff. But like, even with that, like when they were doing that, they would make vinyl records, then he would slip them into like the couches they were building and just ship them out.
No.
So like somebody sitting on the couch.
I have a quick related story. I used to work at the Hollywood YMCA at a time where before like YouTube, so everybody was trying to get famous in any way they could without presenting themselves on. Sorry, we'll get back to your thing in a second. But I remember one time we had the director from the film Wild Things come in. I don't know if you're familiar with the hit film Wild Things. And the director came in, and I remember I was working at the Hollywood YMCA, and so the director for Wild Things went into one of the bathroom stalls, and then so I'm sitting there washing my hands, and I look over, and this guy goes into the stall next to him with like a stack of papers, and so then he sort of puts the stack of papers under the stall, and he starts tapping it to his foot, and so the director from Wild Things gets up and he walks out, and so the guy eventually goes in and walks out. So I go in and I walk into the stall to see what that stack of papers was, and it was a script that the guy had written, and apparently he had recognized this guy as the director from Wild Things, and he was pushing his script against his feet. So maybe on the off chance he would get down, read it while I was on the toilet.
It's very relatable to my story.
Yeah, I was wondering.
No, it was. Were you talking about something similar to that?
No.
Okay. All right.
But they would hide their records in these couches that they built.
You were trying to get like they would hide their records.
Whatever it takes.
I feel like that was probably not an attempt to be more well known. It's probably more for them to be like, hey, this is something we did. Like, right?
And I don't think anyone's ever found one. I think they did like 100 or 300 of them, and like no one's ever found one. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I also now I'm thinking about the YMCA story. So this person also recognized the director of Wild Things, had a script with him in the bathroom of the YMCA
no
ready
idea.
to go.
Well, I'm pretty sure in Hollywood you always have a script in your back pocket.
That is not as weird as it sounds. That is not as weird as it sounds.
Yeah, I guess not.
I mean, I would love to go into Wild Things more, but I'll just wrap up real quick. The White Stripes is also one of the bands that I do regret not seeing. I had a chance to, and then they were playing in Myrtle Beach on the Icky Thump tour, and then I never made it. So that's a bummer. I have seen him in other instances. I've seen him with the Dead Weather Raconteurs. I've seen him solo. He was just on SNL a few weeks ago, and that was just crazy good. Hopefully, maybe they'll get together one day. I know Meg's like off the grid. There was that other thing too with the White Stripes. Like no one ever knew, like, are they brother and sister? Are they married? What's going on there? It's this whole big thing, but everybody knows.
That was an interesting choice to present themselves in that way.
Yeah, very strange.
Kind of confuse people.
Yeah.
How did they present themselves? Not in either way? I'm not a White Stripes guy, so I don't know.
It went both ways at some point, I'm pretty sure.
I think in the beginning they told the press that they were brother and sister. And then I think whenever they were questioned about it, they would just be very ambiguous about it.
Right. And I know they're still friendly because, like, I know Meg was married and like she got married in like Jack White's backyard and all this other crap. I mean, nobody knows what she's doing now, which is kind of a bummer. But
Hmm.
probably just collecting residuals at this point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All those. But this album, Elephant, also, I don't want to steal Joe's "aw man" moments. I call them
Oh,
I call them
dude.
holy macaroni moments. This
Oh,
is yeah. So this album has the most holy macaronis.
how many?
Probably, I'd say mid 60s.
Okay.
I didn't like count them, but
You didn't count as thoroughly as Joe did, I feel.
no, I could just look at the track list on the back of the record and be like, all right, all these songs are crazy.
You didn't have a very complicated 35-point system
No,
about
No.
why this is the perfect catalog.
Yeah.
no,
Maybe next time. Maybe next time.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think
Well, I
that's a
got-
strong case for both of your albums. I could not argue. Really, actually, both of them, the only ones I'm not familiar with are their first ones. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, in knowing what I know about the bands, I mean, I feel like you guys are both on solid legal ground. If I was a judge, I would rule in your favor.
All right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear Mike Babies.
Well, now I'm up, and you can argue mine because you literally already have at the beginning of this show. I'm going all in on Nirvana, all the way,
Wow.
100%.
But they were 3 albums, correct?
What was that?
How many albums were they?
I'm talking about in order of release. I'm talking
Right.
about Smells Like Teen Spirit,
Wait,
and
that's
then
a song.
Incesticide.
Wait, It Smells Like Teen Spirit is a song.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nirvana, Nevermind, and then Incesticide, and then I think Bleach might have came out at some point between those two.
Bleach was first.
I know
don't
it was first, but it didn't come out. Oh, wait. Okay, you're right. So it came out, but then it wasn't widely distributed.
Yes, yeah, it was.
Oh.
Exactly. And so then I'm including In Utero, and then I'm including Live and Unplugged. Those are the
Hmm.
ones that I'm including. And I don't know if there's more than this. I think at that point.
I mean, I think as far as official releases, I don't even think you'd have to include Unplugged, but
you have to. You have to. Because
it actually makes your case stronger, I would
Yeah.
say.
Well, that was the perfect one to go out on. And okay, so in terms of perfect catalog, man, I just remember when I was 15, I think we kind of talked about this earlier, but I was just so angry. And Nirvana was the perfect band to come out at that time because they were sort of singing everything that I was thinking. But so then what happened after that is they sort of established themselves as like their lyrics were kind of nonsensical, but they were just very I'm not a great music critic, but they sort of established themselves as sort of I guess like the voice of a generation. Like we're loud, we don't necessarily abide by the rules. And I think In Utero kind of followed that in the sense that it was very what's the word I'm looking for? Like not very rhythmical. It was just a lot of noise. It was very loud, and I wouldn't by any chance consider In Utero a perfect album, but it was so perfect as a follow-up to Nevermind, because Nevermind blew everybody's mind, and In Utero was such a turn from that, but it was still sort of in line with the Nirvana brand. Is like, this album is going to blow your mind in a different way, just for being like, they had a lot of songs that were just noise, that was just Kurt Cobain yelling while somebody was playing guitar, but which was horrible. If you're listening to, like, nobody is going to put that on their iTunes, but it's so on brand for Nirvana. It was just a perfect follow-up for what they were trying to get across about who they were. And then in the meantime, so in my listening to them, I know Bleach came out first, but then I didn't get into Bleach until after In Utero. And it was just so interesting to see kind of where they were before Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was a little more produced, but then they came out with Unplugged in New York, which was just unbelievable from start to finish. They had About a Girl, which is the opening song, and then they close with Where Did You Sleep Last Night, which I would say is probably the most amazing Kurt Cobain performance that I've ever heard. But Yeah, that's all I've got. Like, I'm not as well spoken as Joe is or Greg, so I don't know how to communicate why I love this discography the most. But John, I remember you were saying earlier that you weren't a huge, or that you didn't think Nirvana was a perfect catalog, and I would wonder why that is.
Well, so I think that they are about. I mean, one of the bands that has probably gotten as close as you can get. I think it also kind of depends on, like you're saying, your opinions about like some of the stuff on like In Utero or Incesticide, where it's very deliberately noisy and difficult, which I agree that I liked, and also when you think about them putting out Nevermind and then following it up with such challenging, weird stuff,
I love it though.
you got to appreciate that. I definitely did and still do. But I guess that's part of what I was saying is then what are we talking about when it's perfect? Is that is, I guess, as a matter of opinion. It can be perfect because you love the fact that they went that direction. I think the argument could be made also that In Utero could have been a stronger album if they had decided to write more straightforward, solid, good songs. You know, I would also agree with that argument. And Incesticide is a little like that too, but that one almost was like, I don't even know what you'd call that, because that was like B-sides and covers and stuff, so it almost is not an official album, but even that one for what it was is great. So I mean, I think that's been part of my problem with this whole thing is I can see arguments for a lot of different bands being perfect, but I don't really know what perfection would actually mean and what could be agreed upon as perfection. You know?
Yeah, when I was looking at this, Incesticide was the one that I was kind of trying to turn a blind eye to because it's not that great. And I was trying to think of a way to work it in. But I just think from start to finish, the Nirvana legacy, there's so many bands like the Rolling Stones or like, I don't know, I don't want to include the Beatles, but like you said earlier, is they'll have a 5-year period where they just put out a bunch of crap and then they come back later. But I feel like Nirvana's legacy from start to finish is so perfect. I just don't think you can.
Do you think it would have held up had he not died?
That's a great question.
Do you think like if they kept putting out music and maybe like it just went totally terrible, like they started putting out like bad music and then they just had like their first two, like the first 3 that you love so much, and then like the next 4 were like, like where do you think his death had much to do with their what's the word?
I don't know if his death did. Well, I think the fact that he died and they stopped making albums.
Right.
Yeah, I think
well,
that did.
That did it. But do you think that adds a little bit to your, or to the? There's a word like the legend of him, or like the
mythology,
the lore, the legacy. Yeah. I just think that Kurt Cobain had a mind for music, kind of like Kanye West did. I think he was just like a misunderstood genius. And I think he probably would have found a way to adapt to the times. At least I hope so.
Right.
I just think it's so hard to find a band with a long-term perfect catalog. And I think just the albums that they put out in the time that he was around, it was just amazing.
I know when it came out, I was in like seventh grade. So it was like junior high school. But there was like a couple kids in my class that would like come in with like the Nirvana shirt and like raving about them and like on the disc or the Walkman. But that was also like the same time for me. I was like 12, so there was a lot of stuff I wasn't allowed to do. So like listen to Nirvana was one. I couldn't watch Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead just came out.
Did you say watch Beavis and Butthead?
I couldn't watch them.
That was one for me. Yeah, and I was like 15 when they came out.
And like Simpsons were coming out, so I was like, well, I'm going home and I'm listening to like jock jams. And these
my
kids
parents would not let me watch
Nirvana.
Fox. My parents would not let me watch Fox Network.
Yeah, it was a weird time. So like even trying to get my hands on like a Nirvana cassette was impossible. So we had to like share like a headphone in like English class.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of Nirvana and the way they hit when they did. I think a lot of people had that experience. Like I know I did. I was like 15 or so, but I was still not allowed to listen to them. But my friend would like give me a tape, you know, and like it was kind of like contraband, you know.
Right.
It's like, Hugh, check out this tape, like, shh, you know. And then you listen to it, and it changed a lot of people's perspective on music. There's like little 12-year-old brains and 15-year-old brains were blown by this stuff, and they just kind of, I think, hit at the exact right time for a huge group of people.
Has there ever been a band since that's changed the face of music as much as Nirvana? And so before you answer that question, I'm going to tell a quick story. And I feel like I've told a couple of you guys this before, but I was hanging out one time. I was at a cigar lounge, and I was reading an article in GQ about, this is the douchiest conversation.
Yeah.
I was reading an article in GQ about Nirvana, and it was talking about how they changed the face of music. And I kind of looked up from the GQ, and there were some guys in the cigar lounge, and they were maybe 25, 30. And I just kind of, the whole thing about the cigar lounge, you just strike up. There's no TV, there's no music playing. So it's fun because you get to strike up conversations with who's ever there. And so I said, yeah, guys, I'm just curious to know, man, like who in your age group would you say has changed the face of music like Nirvana has? And the one guy says, oh man, that's easy, John Mayer. And the other guy was like, yeah, John Mayer, definitely. Which
You need a new cigar lounge.
Thoroughly agree. But yeah, I'd be interesting to, I mean, there's no denying that Nirvana completely changed music.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has done it. Like and anyone who's younger now, like saying anything, I don't think you can totally appreciate how much they change things. Like in New York, there's like Z100 was the the pop radio station, they were playing all the top 40 hits. That went from being basically, like, I don't know what was even still big around that. I mean, I'd probably like Bon Jovi type stuff, like the popular hair band stuff, and then stuff like Whitney Houston and like Michael Jackson still, I think.
Right.
And within like a year, that's like Nirvana playing on like the most popular radio stations in the country. And then within another year, just a whole bunch of bands following in their footsteps, and like basically the entire landscape of popular music changed within a year because of them. And I don't think that's happened since that I'm aware of. I don't know.
Did 10 come out the same year as Nevermind?
I think the year
Nevermind was 91, and I think 10 was 92, but I might be wrong.
That sounds
but
right.
I think it was like
right there.
You're pretty close.
Because I think with that, like my older sister, she was listening like Weezer and U2, and I remember when she got 10, I was like, wow, this is really great. And I was allowed to listen to Pearl Jam. But like she brought home like Nirvana, and I was like, oh no, I can't. I wasn't allowed. But she ended up going, like, she was either like Nirvana or Pearl Jam, and she went the Pearl Jam highway, which is
I'm the same way. I'm kind of the same way. I don't think you can like them both. I think you have to choose one or the other. It's like Freddie and Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Or Star Wars and Star Trek. But I was always a big Nirvana guy.
What do you got for us, John?
Well, like I said, this whole experience has been very not definitive for me. But so I basically have two answers because of this. The first answer is that I kind of looked back at the Beatles' discography because, to me, they're the best rock band of all time, like best band. I think it's hard to argue with that. And it's even if you're not a huge fan of their music, I think that you have to appreciate the fact that they set the tone and like the path and for every single band that came after them. So I started thinking about their discography as perfect in the sense that they created the idea even of a band's discography being important. So I think like before the Beatles, rock music was kind of looked at as a fad, and a lot of the music that was put out was to capitalize on that fad. So there wasn't a lot of people making like great albums necessarily. And I mean, even if they were sort of, it was because they were good enough to kind of just jump in the studio and pump out 12 songs that happened to be really good. But nobody was really thinking about it as a long-term like artistic statement of like, you know, we're going to put out album after album and grow and go in this direction. I don't think that was even much of a concept before the Beatles started. And you can maybe make a case for Bob Dylan in that, but I feel like the Beatles were a little bit ahead of like just sort of developing and setting a course as a band. So if you think about the fact that the Beatles, like the first couple albums are not amazing. I actually listened to the first couple Beatles albums really probably for the first time all the way through, just in thinking about this. And, you know, they're fine, but they're kind of like by the numbers, like 50s influenced rock music. And there's some moments of real brilliance. And it's not till like their third or fourth album where they really hit their stride. And like you start getting into that point of like, okay, this is a great album. And then this one is also a great album. So that's what I was thinking about. So I can't say like the entire catalog is perfect because, you know, those first few albums, I feel like finding their footing. And then they take a little while to get there. But I think that's a pattern you can look at in a lot of the bands we talked about, is the first album is not necessarily where you come out of the gate swinging. You kind of come in sort of staking your claim, kind of being like, all right, this is what we're influenced by. This is kind of the genre we're going to be a part of, and we're going to, you know, go in this tradition that's been going on. And then the next few albums, you start making it your own and kind of developing into something unique and putting your own stamp on all that stuff. So I think the fact that they basically invented that as a pathway for rock music makes a strong case for them having a perfect discography.
Mm-hmm. They started, I mean, I always considered them like the first boy band.
That you could probably say that.
And then they dropped then they just started dropping LSD, and then they made some really cool stuff.
They broke out guitar.
See, maybe that's all like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC need to do, is just drop a bunch of acid and start writing really weird albums now.
I know for me, having Sgt. Pepper on cassette, anytime I would be like in the middle of, and even when I'm writing songs now, I'm in the middle of it, and I got to remember, like, write it for that reason. Like, work on the song. Like Johnny Cash has a famous quote of like, write every song like it's the last one you'll ever do.
Right.
And for
I live every day, Joe.
What's that?
Like it's the last one I'll ever live.
And so I think about I wouldn't love writing music as much as I do. I wouldn't have been like, I went from just like, not like, I played guitar in a band. We played 3 shows. A band that I ended up being in for 8 years was like, hey, we need a singer. Does anyone want to do it? I would not have been like, I'll try, if I didn't have those moments sitting on the floor, listening to the Beatles on cassette. I feel like having that moment was like, maybe I can, and maybe I have a foundation of songwriting, because like the first band I ever fell in love with was the Beatles. That's like that cassette was the very first thing that made me realize I love music. that maybe I can try to put a song together. You know,
That's
so that was
awesome.
my confidence, was that moment, was those memories of listening to the Beatles sitting on the floor and on a cassette, my dad's Walkman.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's awesome. See, and like, but I would say too, like going back to the boy band thing, like even though they were boy band-esque,
Right.
even those albums before they got experimental and druggy, there's a lot of amazing songs on there.
Oh yeah.
And they were doing it themselves as well, which was not the norm at that point for the bands to be writing their own songs. And so like, you know, like their popularity and their image was very boy band-ish, but
Correct.
like their
Their
talent
content was much more mature.
yeah, like I would say, like I was kind of I didn't go through the entire discography, but even when you get to like Help and Hard Day's Night, like before the real
That's
drug
a
years,
great
the
song.
albums are really great. You know, like they're not experimental great. They're not like you know, blow your mind acidy great, but they're great songs. Like and for the time, I think like pretty unique and innovative.
Mm-hmm. What was your other one?
So my other one, I just was thinking about a whole different route, and I started thinking about Fiona Apple, and every single album she's put out has been great. And I mean, again, maybe not in that sense that every single song, every single album, perfect or great or whatever. But one thing about what she's done when I look back is like, she decided, I feel like after the second album that she put out, to pretty much put out albums when she felt like it and when she was ready.
Yep.
And I don't think that's something a lot of bands have done, or like had the guts to do.
Right.
Because that involves kind of spending 5 years, 6 years more, not really putting out anything and just sort of, but every time she puts out an album, I feel like you can tell that she means it and wanted it. There's no like obligation in it. And including like her newest album, I would say is one of the best ones she's put out. And so I would make a strong case for her as a perfect discography based on that. It's a little more in the traditional sense too, of just every album is good, every song is good, you know, and you can argue about how good, but nothing even close to a bad or disappointing album from her. And yeah, and again, that commitment to doing it when she feels it, I think really shows through in the albums.
How many studio albums does she have? Do you know off the top?
She's got 5 studio albums. So that's, again, when you think about it, that's going back to
Early 2000s, right?
7, I think.
No, like 97.
Yeah,
96, 97, I think.
Oh, wow.
So that's not a lot of albums for that amount of time, you know, compared to a lot of bands who've been around that long. Yeah, 5 albums and what is that, 30? Not good at math. What is that, 30?
I'm a writer. I don't know.
See, I think it was either you I heard it from about the new album, or someone. I was like, all right, I'll give it a whirl, and then I couldn't get through it. It gave me a lot of anxiety.
You didn't like it?
It was just a lot of noise.
There is a decent amount of noise, a decent amount of moments where
It was it was too complicated. There was a lot happening, and I was like, I just need this to.
You want to sit down with.
Yeah, I couldn't drive and be comfortable. Like whenever I try to listen to a new album, I was like, all right, let me go for a drive and I'll put this new album on. And it's like, I'm just gonna go home.
A lot of
like,
screeching brakes in the background.
It was a lot to take in.
Sirens.
So I don't know.
it is a little bit difficult. I mean, the songs are great, but there are these moments. There's like one song where the last like minute of it, there's actual audio of like her dogs barking in the house and like background noise.
30 minutes.
And, you know, and there's some other ones where yeah, like her choices, like as a singer, she gets kind of like it's a little aggressive or like
Mhm.
kind of grating or something. But for me, it came out like somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it was the perfect amount of kind of like crazy and melodic and straightforward. So it really worked well for me. But I can understand how.
Whoa, Drive By Sammy.
Yay!
It's another cat cameo.
It's kind of like listening to Chuck Mangione. At some point, you're like, all right, there's a lot of shit happening right here. I
Yeah.
gotta turn it off. Well, I wonder what label she's on that lets her put out that little amount of albums in a 30-year time frame.
I'll have to check. I mean, she started out on a major label. I
Right,
don't know if she is anymore,
right.
which I think kind of makes sense. But I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I didn't do my research the way that Joe might have if he was on Apple. He would know. I don't.
I do agree with the Beatles. I think it's definitely a sure thing with them. They're one of the bands that you could be like, all right, this band grew and changed their sound over time so much.
Yeah.
And like they really matured. They really just went for like, this is what we're doing. And if you don't like it, cool. We're gonna do more acid for the next one and make something even crazier.
Yeah, and I think they laid out a template, sort of a
Mhm.
path that other bands could follow if they
Absolutely.
wanted to. And that's
Did you ever watch the George Harrison documentary that was on HBO? Like
yeah, that was
that
great.
thing was incredible.
Gotta watch that.
It's really long. It was in like 3 parts. I
Yeah,
had to bring it up a lot, but
but it's great.
they do get into like the whole psychedelic era pretty in depth, more in depth than I've ever seen on any other type of like documentary or stuff. But I love the early Beatles stuff. Like just the sheer chaos they created in America was nobody's ever done that ever. I mean, maybe Michael Jackson, but I mean,
I should have went
it,
with Thriller for my perfect album last week. Thriller was
mm,
amazing. I remember like in 83, 84, man. America was Michael Jackson crazy. He took a picture
crazy.
of E.T. E.T.'s not even real. How do you do that?
Yeah.
E.T.'s not even real.
Did Thriller have The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney?
Did, yeah. And he's
Did it
like,
really? No, not on Thriller.
did, yeah, yeah.
Wasn't that on like the
Oh, the
same
one
album as
before
Black
that.
and
Was the
White?
one before that?
Oh,
I
I
don't
thought
know.
I'm gonna look
I'm
that up
not
right now.
sure of the track listing on Thriller.
Yeah, look it up.
I thought The Girl Is Mine was on like the same album that like it was on Thriller, huh?
Yeah,
All
right.
right.
I'm right.
No idea.
Which is a good song, but you kind of I feel a little disappointing for like two of the greatest like songwriters of all time. That's what we got. We got The Girl Is Mine, like Paul and Michael arguing politely about a girl and who
I could name
They
you
really
one
were
better.
arguing very
Uh,
politely because at the end, I feel like Paul kind of ratcheted up a little bit. And Michael's like, Paul, I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter. Not a great Michael Jackson impression, but he was really trying to get Paul to step down a little bit.
But then you get the flip side. You have Mick Jagger and David Bowie
Mhm. dancing in the
dancing
street.
in the streets, which is just a great song. And the video's really
That's not
uncomfortable.
even their
It's like
song,
David
right?
Bowie
That was
will
a
show
cover.
up, like
What's that?
That was a
Mick Jagger will be dancing, or David Bowie will be dancing, and then Mick Jagger will show up out of nowhere, out of frame, kind of look at the camera and make a very surprised face, and then jump back off the screen, and then David Bowie will just keep dancing.
The video is really what takes that one too.
Oh, no question. No
Absolutely.
question.
It's a great entertaining video for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, a cover song though. So I mean, like you can't even. I
Right.
feel like even that was a little bit lazy. It's like you're Mick Jagger and David Bowie, and you're gonna do a cover. So like, write a song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And then the music video. I don't know.
No, they went all in. I appreciate the enthusiasm. They went all in.
Yeah,
well, this was fun.
it was. So
Did anybody, I want to go for honorable mention, did anybody consider the Beastie Boys for perfect?
I did. That was one of
I
my
did too. I did too. I was so close.
very close.
Yeah, the first 4 albums, if we were going to cut it off there, Ill Communications, Paul's Boutique, Check Your Head, and I'm sorry, wait, License to Ill.
License to Ill.
Paul's Boutique. Check your head in ill communications.
I love Hello Nasty.
Do you really?
I do.
Okay. I was 8 out of 10 on Hello Nasty.
That's one of the albums where like I can listen to it and know exactly where I was in my life. And like, I mean, I was only in high school, but still, I remember that whole year that came out, and it was a very like formative year.
I feel like if you're a Beastie Boys guy, if that's your thing, then Beastie Boys would be an unarguably perfect catalog. Like they're not quite my thing, but I feel like if you were into that kind of music, I feel like you would make a solid argument.
Have you heard their punk songs?
What was that?
You heard Beastie Boys, like the very first thing they put out, like their punk songs?
No, I haven't.
I was so excited when someone told me about it. I was just like, this can't be bad. Wait,
you're talking about before License to Ill.
Yeah, I just remember not liking it at all. Some song about a pig on a farm and just weird, just a really weird.
Is it part of their official catalog or no?
I don't think so.
No,
probably not.
Beastie Boys.
But it's the same thing we were talking about earlier. Like we were talking about Sugar Ray has they sounded like a skate punk band, and then Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine had Inside Out, which is like a very heavy melodic hardcore band, and he sounds nothing like he does in Rage Against the Machine. But I like that these certain bands have these like backgrounds that you wouldn't know. You'd have to like hear it from a person or find it on a message board or just randomly.
Maybe we could do that for a topic for our next show.
Hey, what is the topic for our next show? Are we doing guilty pleasure?
I don't see, you know what, we got to, I guess, make a decision right now. I really want to do the
we can
Hell
open it up to the comments. We can
the Hell song.
Yeah.
That one is one of the topics I'm most looking forward to, is the song that you would hear on repeat in hell.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's got to be it.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So
Let's
maybe
do that.
I've got like 5 I can pick from.
Should they be all different ones since from the group chat, or can we use the ones from the group chat? What is
I
mean,
think
I've
gotta
already said
keep
it.
the one that
I've
I
already
have.
said, yeah.
Yours won. I think John has the strongest one for worst song.
It's hard to argue for anybody. That's,
I might change mine.
I might change mine just so it's
a little bit more shocking.
Oh wait, that also reminds. So do we agree on that one?
Yeah, I think we'll do the song played in hell.
Yeah.
on repeat.
On repeat.
Mike, we also had a group text where you promised a story about asking a girl to prom. I don't remember how that came up. It was related to something we were talking about with music on our texts, and you said you had a story.
I thought he wrote a freestyle rap about it.
No. That was 4th grade when I wrote a freestyle rap about a girl I had a crush on.
Oh, right.
We'll get to that in another episode. But yeah, I can't remember how it came up, but my senior year of high school, I don't want to say her name, but I had a big crush on this girl who
Do you think she's listening?
What was that?
You think she's listening? Is that why you don't want to say her name?
She's definitely in our fan base. But I had a huge crush on this girl, and so I wanted to call her up and ask her to prom, but I was really nervous and I didn't know how to do it. So before I called her up, I called one of my friends up, and this was back in the days of call waiting. So I said, hey, I'm about to call this girl. I'm about to ask her to prom. If things start going bad, I want you to call me like in 3 or 4 minutes, and then I can switch over on call waiting, and then I can be like, oh, it's my mom. I got to go. Sorry. And he's like, all right, cool. I'm in. So I called her up, and we hadn't really talked that much before this. We were casual friends, but not really friends. So I called her up and I was just like, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? So do you want to go to prom with me? I mean, it was about as smooth as that. And she goes, no. So normally when a girl is not that interested in you, she will make up an excuse like, no, I'm going out with my friends that night, or no, I'm going with somebody else, or I've got to stay in and wash my hair that night. And she said, no. So I said, oh, are you just going to stay in and wash your hair that night? And she goes, no. And I said, all right, well, I'll talk to you later.
You didn't keep digging in to find out what it was that she, why
well,
she
so 3 minutes later, my friend calls me And I pick up and he goes, "Hey man, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been off the phone for the last 3 minutes and 20 seconds." I appreciate it, but it wasn't necessary. So it was a solid no. Maybe the worst no I've ever gotten.
But look at you now.
Yeah, look at me now, living the dream.
I like the fact that you had the backup plan of him calling you, because I guess you pictured it being a more long, drawn out
Thing.
no, if it was going to be a no. Like, you
The
figured
way
it would be a
that I saw it-
5-minute discussion about how she wasn't going to go to the prom with you.
I thought there was going to be a lot more conversation before me asking her, but I was so nervous
Oh, I see.
that it just kind of all came out within the first 30 seconds.
Right. I guess, like, ideally, you could have maybe gotten a feel for it before you actually asked the question.
Ideally. Ideally. But it was a very emphatic no. So I just hung up the phone and I listened to Nirvana Unplugged in New York.
There you go. And I
Yeah.
bet that made you feel better. Because it's a great album.
One of my friends asked a girl in middle school at a middle school dance if she would headbang with him, and they played Limp
That's a
Bizkit.
hard yes.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Do you agree?
She fully agreed. They stood right next to the table and they headbanged to Limp Bizkit, I believe.
Did they do it all for the nookie?
All of it, every part of it.
Wait, what was this? Where did this ask happen? Was it in person? Was it like, will you headbang with me?
He went up to her. It was at Belmonte Middle School in great old Saugus, Massachusetts. Went up to her. It was Carl, Carl asked this girl, Kristen Arsenault.
Oh, I know that guy.
She would headbang with him. And then she agreed. And then he went up to the guy behind the table, the DJ, and he put his song in and he walked right back up to her and stood right shoulder to shoulder and they waited for the song to come on. And then they headbanged to it.
Oh, man.
It's the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
Her name was Kristen Arsenal?
Kristen Arsenault, I
That's
believe.
the coolest name I think anyone can ever have.
That is pretty good.
All right.
Well, let's wrap this up so John can edit out all that BS.
No way. That was the best.
I don't know. That last week
No, that was good.
I only cut out the last 5 minutes or so. I don't know. We're going.
Well, we're averaging 8-minute views, so.
Right. We'll let the people watching be their own editors to this.
I think they already are.
John, do you have any other podcasts you want to give a shout out to that you're on?
None that I'm aware of. I can't really think of any.
No, I can't think of any other shows that you're on.
Can't really at the moment. I mean, this one podcast with my good friends from Charlotte, kind of my main thing.
Cool.
And the only thing like I really care about these days. So
All right.
that's all I have to say about that. All right, guys.
Boy.
Good times. Good
All
talk.
right.
All right, guys.
See you next week.
Later.
Bye.